Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mediation and Beyond's YouTube channel, where today I am so delighted to have yet again Dr. Loren Olson, a dear friend of mine. So Loren, thank you for coming on today. So appreciate having you.
Thank you, Colleen. I've been looking forward to coming back to visit with you again.
Absolutely. So the reason I'm having Dr. Loren Olson on today again is because he's written another book called No More Neckties. And before we get into his book, let me introduce Dr. Loren Olson for those of you who don't know him. So Dr. Loren Olson is a gay father, a board certified psychiatrist, a popular speaker, and author of the acclaimed book, Finally Out, and his newly celebrated book, which is why he's here today, No More Neckties, a memoir. And Dr. Olson was the winner of the IBPA Ben Franklin Award for Best LGBT Non-Fiction. He's 79 years old, doesn't look it. He continues to practice psychiatry, is a busy writer, and enjoys riding his bike on bike trails in Iowa. He sometimes cuts his own hair during the pandemic, which is now over, but it looks great, Loren.
Oh, good.
Dr. Olson speaks to the challenges of being gay, especially when homosexuality was considered a mental health disorder. It's crazy. He speaks to living honestly, but not without fear. He speaks to the challenges to keep being a father during his divorce, to developing a healthy relationship with his ex-wife, his children, all while maintaining a relationship with his partner. Now, of 36 years. Wow. Loren's book, his life experience, is inspiring and a timely must-read for all who believe that not only being gay, but post-divorce relationships can exist in a positive and healthy way, not without work, of course, but it is possible. You can reach him at nomornecktiesbook.com. So thank you, Loren, for coming on today. I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to this too. It's an exciting time. The book comes out this week, so it's making me a little nervous as well, because it's rather personal. And
Yes.
That's a little scary.
It'll be fun. And where can people, just so we'll just get that out of the way, and then we'll talk about it again, but where can people find your book, No More Neckties?
Yeah, it's available through local bookstores and Amazon.
Okay.
And also on Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, and it can be ordered any place through a bookstore. Sometimes you have to get the numbers from my website or something for the book to make sure it gets ordered. But most of the independent bookstores probably won't be stocking it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So again, it's No More Neckties, like a tie.com.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into the title, because I'm loving the title, No More Neckties. Where'd that come from?
Well, the original working title was Fitting In Is Not Belonging. And I liked that idea, but it seemed like too much like a self-help book, and it didn't seem to work. It didn't seem unique enough. What happened actually, when my mother died, when I was about 60, I had gone through this process that we were talking about before we came online, and that was reassessing my life, where I wanted to go. And I had made a commitment to myself at that time that I would not sit through any boring lectures anymore. I would not go to cocktail parties to network with people I didn't like, and I'd never wear any neckties again. And so as we were working through the process of choosing the title, that came back to me. And it's kind of a metaphor for throwing off expectations of what other people expect us to do, and the freedom that comes with that.
Okay, so it's like getting rid of what everybody else thinks we should be doing, right? You go to a party, of course you're going to put on a bow tie, necktie, whatever it's going to be. We're going to dress a certain way, and you're saying, I'm done with that.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
It's gonna
And,
be, I can wear
and
whatever I want.
yeah, the older you get, the easier that is,
Isn't that the truth, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah,
that the truth? So the book itself, it's a memoir, right? It's a memoir
yes,
of essays, right? And take us, for those people who don't know who the hell you are,
yeah,
right? So you're a psychiatrist,
yes,
you were married,
yes.
you have children,
Yes, I have 2 daughters and 6 grandchildren.
right? And you are married now. We have a partner,
Yes, Doug and I have been together for 36 years, but we've been married since it became legal
right? Since it
in
became legal.
2009.
Okay. No, but you're divorced.
Yes,
So the 2 daughters you have and the 6 grandchildren are from your first marriage, but that was
yes,
to a woman.
yes. I was married to Lynn for 18 years before I left.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's take us to that first, because that's a good portion of what this is, right? It's a good
yeah,
portion of being married, doing all the right things that you were taught to, like, thought you were supposed to do, even though you have that internal struggle, right?
yes,
And so that's, to me, the fascinating part, because that is what is so relatable for so many people. And I know so many people that have been stuck in that position where trying to do the right thing, trying to put on the necktie,
yeah,
which then becomes a noose, right?
yeah. That's
Because,
right. That's
right?
right. It feels like
And
that.
some people never get to take it off, or some people just take off the necktie but never live their life. But they took
Yeah,
off the necktie, but they've never gotten beyond taking the necktie off and living
yeah.
their life. So you really had a full life, really, with Lynn and the girls, right? And
Yes, very
but
much.
what happened?
Well, when I was 32 is when I kind of began to question things. But I had finished medical school, graduate school. I had finished a career in the Navy. I had my 2 daughters, had my own private practice in medicine. I'd passed my board exam, and we had a home on the coast of Maine, and it was like, finally, I have realized everything that I thought would make me happy, and I think Lynn would say the same thing, that we had realized the American dream in a sense. But I was lonely, and I didn't know why. And, I had always felt some difficulty connecting with men in a way. And a series of events through that period in my late 30s led to my finally discovering that I was struggling with my sexuality for many, many years in various ways. And so we moved back to Nebraska, or Iowa, actually. We'd grown up in Nebraska, left Maine. And I think it was an attempt to save our marriage. We built a house to save our marriage. We did all the things that a lot of people do to try and maintain that commitment that we had. I mean, we really were invested in that traditional lifestyle. Both of us were. And so the idea of leaving that was very, very difficult for me. And I went through a period of time of a great deal of confusion about what to do, how to get out of it. I went through a time when I really wished that she would become a drunk so I could leave, and that, and the world would be on my side instead of being the one who was making the decision
Would be justified, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I didn't want to lose that respect that I thought I would lose if I were the one who walked out. And I did lose friends. I did lose some people who were important to me during that period of time. That people choose sides,
Yes.
and some of them didn't choose me.
That happens I think hands down, that happens in divorce in general, right? No
Yeah,
matter why anybody leaves, that just happens. You just
yeah,
people feel the need to pick sides,
yeah.
and regardless of why people divorce, it's just the way it's people feel that
Yeah, it's very
advice.
hard to
Yes.
maintain neutrality in that circumstance.
Yep.
It really is.
Yep. So when you exited, for people who haven't read this, and you're feeling that desire to kind of break up the family, so to speak. Did you come out, for those who want to take a read? Did you come out, or did you just say you'd like a divorce?
It was a very slow process of coming out, because this was 1986, and it was before I felt safe professionally to come out. So I took very small steps at that point. And probably one of the things that changed my life at that time, Colleen, was that I joined a support group for gay fathers. And it did a couple of things for me. One was I recognized that there were many men like me who really were invested in family and children. And it wasn't like I was abandoning them. I was just trying to find a new way to negotiate my relationship with my children. And the second thing it did was that I saw that it was a diverse group of men. And so it helped me shed every stereotype that I had about what it meant to be gay. And that helped me to feel better about myself and get rid of some of the shame and the guilt that held me in the marriage for a lot longer than I might have stayed otherwise. I realized I could be a good person and be gay, and I didn't have to be gay like other people were gay, like the stereotype.
Was that hard to find a support group in the 80s, 90s?
It was sort of a serendipitous thing for me. There weren't many, and it just kind of accidentally happened that there was someone from Boston who was in town and had started this group because of its effectiveness there. And there are now more of them. In fact, I'm involved in a group called Gay Fathers Worldwide, which is an online support group for gay men who are fathers. And there's one in Toronto that's been going on for 40 years. So there are some around, but because of the fact that a lot of people are secretive about this part of their life, it can be difficult to access them and find them. I think online is probably better for a lot of people, because people in rural Nebraska or rural Georgia or wherever are going to have difficulty connecting with the community of gay men. And these online groups can be very effective and still maintain some sense of privacy and anonymity.
Well, I would imagine also, even in this day and age, I would imagine there's some hesitancy and some fear about losing their children, or it being used against them in court, even though we like to think we've moved along in that capacity. I still don't think that that's the case. I still think that people like to think it will be used against them. I think there's,
it's interesting to hear you say that, because the perception from Iowa would be that in the New England states that you've got it all figured out and things are very liberal and everything is split 50-50. And I have a friend who's in one of the southern states who is deathly afraid of having his sexuality exposed in the trial, because he knows, or at least believes that he knows, that the judge will not grant him custody of the kids, and that everything will be very unfavorable toward him if it's discovered. And I had trouble believing that at first, but I've heard it enough to know that it's very much a regional thing, but it's also based on what a judge's belief systems are. I mean, they're not without their own values.
absolutely.
And it depends on which judge you get.
Oh, I see that here.
Yeah,
I see that here. It just depends on what judge you get, how they woke up, what their experience is, what political views they have. And there's no way to say to a judge that, well, you can't bring in your political views, because where do you go after a judge?
Yeah, that's right. But I think, to give you a plug, it's the kind of the beauty of the kind of work that you do, because, people can hopefully at some point set aside that anger that they have and begin to have a reasonable voice, help them negotiate out the differences that they have, because if they go to court, they're both going to lose more than they will if they negotiate it out ahead of time. The expense of the trial or whatever,
Yes.
but also just, a judge is going to say, this is yours and that's hers. And it may not be at all what you really wanted. But I think the idea of being able to mediate those differences is really, really critical.
Well, then the kids lose, and the kids are only little for a little while, right? Because kids don't stay little forever, right? So
That's right.
the kids lose.
Not for
Which
long.
then leads me to your children, Loren. And so your children were how old when you divorced?
When I left home, it was they were 9 and 13, so it was a tough age for them. And the divorce actually, I think we were able to negotiate some of those things, even though we used attorneys. We didn't have a mediator because we didn't rush the process.
Sure.
Usually the person who wants out the fastest, it loses the most. They're willing to sacrifice too much. And so I think even though it was painful to drag it out and that long, I think we were better able to get past some of the anger and move to more reasonable decisions in how to negotiate out our settlement.
And fast forward, I mean, your kids have done very well. I remember your kids weren't overly surprised when you came out.
Yeah. Not overly surprised is an understatement. It was like, oh, we know, and I didn't know how, but they had figured it out, or somebody had told them, or they had discovered something in my apartment. I don't know what it was, but it was just like, oh, it's not a big deal. And I hear that a lot from men, that that you tell your parents and they're like, oh, well, we thought maybe so. Particularly mothers seem to always know. And siblings often have figured it out as well, or had some suspicions about it. And so a lot of the things that we worry about aren't often manifest. And what I counsel people about when I talk with them about this is that we tend to magnify the negative and minimize the positivity. That we make it just this awfulized scenario of what's going to happen when we come out. And many times it's like, oh, well, we know, or we don't care. But the positive part of it is very difficult to talk to. And I'm sure you see this in heterosexual divorces too, that people can't imagine what the positives of that life can be like once they've left a bad marriage, because you haven't felt it, and it's unknown, and it's like being an adolescent all over again. You have to explore life and make your own discoveries.
Well, most people tend to anticipate the unknown and put fear all over it.
Yes.
Instead of put excitement all over it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you could just get rid of the fear and just put excitement, because that unknown can be so wonderful, but people put that fear.
And I think the reason that Lynn was able to get through it maybe easier than some was that she decided to go to law school and develop her own professional life. And she had been sort of the traditional doctor's wife,
Yes.
a role that she didn't really like all that much anyhow. And so when she began to develop a sense of who she was apart from the marriage and have some goals for herself, that made it easier for her to deal with the divorce. And then she began dating again and developing a relationship. And but a lot of women in that situation, and men too, just get stuck feeling anger and resentful, and they want to some kind of retribution for being hurt, and they just get stuck there for a long time. But the secret is really trying to be able to find some sense of way to forgive people and move on and refocus your life on your own goals for yourself.
It's so true. And in your book, you go on to really talk about a lot of the experiences you had even after you came came out, even after the divorce, right? And
Right.
just your own self-discovery in your own sexuality, which, it wasn't like you came out and then okay, I'm gay, I'm all settled with that. That's super easy, right? So what were some of your own personal struggles that you could share with somebody who's kind of watching this, that, like, I like the title of one of your chapters, The Illusions of Truth, or The Illusion of Truth. Like, what were some of the things you kind of, I guess, coming out thought, like going into, oh, I'm going into this whole world of being out and gay, and this is going to be, I guess maybe this is going to be easy, or this, you know what I mean? Like I think sometimes we think, oh, I'm going to be divorced, even if you're a heterosexual person. I'm going to be divorced. It's going to be great. And then, like, my girlfriend the other day said, I cannot believe it's almost 10 years later and I'm still divorced. Because I think she thought getting divorced, it was going to be so much easier and better for her life. Not that she wished she was still married, but I think she had this whole illusion of what being divorced is. And I do hear that a lot. Like, being divorced doesn't mean you're going to be remarried and it's going to be better.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. That we tend to think that if I can just get rid of that bitch, I can move on, and I'll find my real soulmate.
Absolutely.
And sex will be wonderful, and we'll have this, ongoing, beautiful relationship, and everything will be perfect. And it's not. People are people, and after you're in a new relationship, you have a lot of things you need to negotiate again, and the sparkle diminishes after a while. And so Doug and I went through some hard times in our relationship and had to decide whether we were going to stay together. I mean, it wasn't easy always. And we've fortunately fought our way through that and recommitted to our relationship. But there's no magic in a second relationship. And I think some people get into these serial marriages because they keep thinking there's going to be eventually the right one's going to come along and make me happy. And it just doesn't work that way. You have to find your own happiness within the marriage and negotiate out the conflicts. And it's not easy all the time, for sure.
And would you, so in reality, it is no different whether you're in a heterosexual relationship or in a homosexual relationship. It makes no difference. Or in a relationship with yourself. You have to work at it.
Yeah. And you have to talk about the hard stuff in your relationship. You have to make time for each other. I think in our society, busyness is always a good excuse for not being able to do stuff, and we get so engaged in our own life, and a lot of that was what created some of the difficulty that Doug and I had. And that was I was going through a lot in my professional life. I was working on a book. I was busy doing this, and I was neglecting him in a lot of ways. And so we had other things too that we just weren't talking about, and so it was easy to move away from each other. And it's so hard sometimes to talk about the ugly stuff that comes up in your relationship. But if you don't do that, you keep growing further and further apart, and then finally you think, well, maybe there's somebody else who's a better lover, a better partner, and then you get stuck in that magical thinking about discovering the right person.
I think that's, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think one of the key things about longevity in a relationship is to not be too busy for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and that everything or everyone else, including children, does not come first.
Yeah.
Because if that relationship doesn't come first, then you're not going to have a relationship, and those kids are going to grow up and leave.
Yes, 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 they do.
And they should, right? I mean,
Yeah, that is our goal.
that is the goal.
Most of the time, but it is a balance, you know. And I always tell people that our values are really shown in our checkbooks and our appointment schedules. I mean, that's where our values lie, and they may not be reflecting what you think your values are, but in fact,
Yes.
that is what your values are.
Yes, that's a great point. I know that one of the other things I think is hard for people to talk about, but necessary, and we were talking about it a little before we started to record, was sexuality. It was sex, not sexuality, but the actual act of sex.
Yeah.
And you know, which is so important at any age and any stage of the relationship, because it changes with the relationship. And it should be changing and growing with each person, because each person changes at different stages, and the relationship has to change with the person, right? Because not each person is always at the same level, right? So you know, someone could and I don't care what kind of, if it's a homosexual or heterosexual relationship, but you know, one person could have erectile dysfunction, one person could be in menopause. You know, if you're a homosexual relationship, one person could have erectile dysfunction, the other person couldn't. One person could have menopause, the other person couldn't, or one could have no menopause, erectile dysfunction. Like there's so many permutations here. But what we were talking about earlier, and I checked that page I was telling you about, 201 in your book. And let me just remind people, No More Neckties. So I'm going to just read from it quickly. And it wrote, which I really talked to, I'm just going to read a little bit from it. And it says, it was referencing erectile dysfunction. And it says, when men do not understand this natural evolution of their sexuality, diminished desire, lower ejaculatory volume, and unreliable erections, they frequently begin to beat up on themselves. They begin to believe they are losing their manhood. And what we were talking about earlier was like, when I read that, I was like, wait a minute. I could easily have said, when women do not understand this natural evolution of their sexuality, diminished desire, lower wetness, even, you know, and unreliable orgasms, like you know what I mean? You can't, or just desire, they frequently begin to beat up on themselves, and they begin to believe they are losing their womanhood, because so I was like saying, and that could be for a homosexual man, it could be for a female, it could be for a female in her 40s, perimenopausal. It doesn't have to be somebody in her 50s or 60s. Like it's someone going through hot flashes. Like there's so much going on. And I was like, boy, your book, No More Neckties, like that just relates to everybody.
Yes, you know, I've of course, most of the work I do around this is with men and talking about that. But so many men, I think that they should know everything as if it was an innate part of who we are. But as we evolve over time, things change. They aren't as predictable as they were before in a lot of different ways. But once they begin to understand that those changes are natural, they can change their lovemaking to accommodate those things. And actually, I often say old men make better lovers, because instead of just pursuing that immediate, you know, ejaculation, and you know, once you begin having sex, you forget about lovemaking. You know, it's just like all of a sudden it changes. But as men get older and you understand that these are things that can be dealt with, particularly if you change your attitude. You know, I often say that I hate the word sexual performance, because it sounds like you're expecting a standing ovation. You know, it's not a performance at all. It should be about pleasure and experiencing the intimacy of being with another person. Now, that's not to say there are times when we want a one-off, casual, fast, whatever,
Right.
and that happens, and it makes people vulnerable, particularly. For example, you were talking about the differences in a relationship, but if one person's sex drives up and the other's down, how do you negotiate those things out? There needs to be some discussion about it and how you're going to satisfy it. But there are all times when we're vulnerable to cheating and moving outside of the relationship. And I hate this phrase that sometimes says once a cheater, always a cheater, because it sounds like if you cheat once, there's some kind of a character flaw that you have that's going to make it impossible for you to have a stable and committed relationship. But I think anybody can, under the right circumstances, cheat, if you want to call it that, and I think it's important for couples to realize that they can get past that and figure out a way. Habitual cheating may be a different issue, betrayal. But my belief, Colleen, is that the things that's most damaging about that are the lies that surround it. When you tell the lies and you undermine the trust in the relationship, that's far more important than the sex that happens, whatever it is.
Oh, it's never about the sex. It's always about the lies that go with it. Having been somebody who was cheated on, it wasn't about the cheating. That was, you can move past that. You can work with that. It was about just talking about it and not being honest about it when it's in your face. Like just be honest.
Yeah.
Because that's all you want. Is you just want the truth. That's all.
And that's kind of the message that I want to convey in the book is we have to talk about the hard stuff if we want to have that personal connection with other people. And it doesn't just have to be with a spouse. It can be with our best friends and chums, and part of the reason that I felt so lonely up until the time I was 32 or 40 was because I couldn't share part of myself. I had to hide those difficult parts of myself from other people. And I never felt like I was totally present in a relationship with other men because I was afraid I'd give myself away. And that created a lot of that loneliness that kept me from connecting to other men. And since coming out and being able to share all of the things with at least a few people has made me much more capable of having intimate relationships with other men. Not sexual, but just
yeah. Does the No More Neckties, it seems like it is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah, I think
across the board.
Yeah, I think people depend too much on approval for their self-esteem, and it never works. It never makes a person satisfied with himself to get a pat on the back, because it never lasts long. You have to keep going after him. And people get real stuck in that, particularly when we're young with our parents trying to meet their expectations. And the adolescence is a process of discovering being yourself and trusting your own decisions and taking responsibility when decisions go badly. All of that is an important part of that. But if you're always looking for approval, you're not really in control of your own life.
Yeah, and how would you say, for someone watching, say a younger person watching, how would someone know that they're not looking for approval?
That they're not. I think you have a confidence that you can take a risk of doing what it is that may seem controversial. I mean, use the example of writing the book. I know that I'm exposing myself to negative stuff because I've been pretty frank about some things, and there are going to be people who aren't going to like that. But at this point, it felt like I really needed to be honest, to tell my story in that personal way, and let people relate to it emotionally, if not factually, and like it or not. But my self-esteem isn't contingent on whether or not I get, all 5-star ratings on the book. What really is satisfying to me, Colleen, is when somebody writes to me and says, Loren, you wrote something in the book, like you did earlier, that really connected with me. And I want you to know about that's the payoff for being an author, is when you have said something that connects you with another person on an emotional level. And that's the reason I did that.
So it's because you're solid no matter what somebody says.
That's right.
Doesn't change your value of who you are as a person.
Yeah, it might hurt a bit.
Yeah.
Because we like to be approved of, but at the same time, we don't have to be devastated if people don't.
Absolutely. I want to ask you a couple of two words, and I want you to answer the question. So I'm going to say 2 words and then you finish it. If you don't mind. It's kind of not, I want to say a little game. It's not really a little game, but you get it. I feel
as an old man that I feel that this is in many ways the best time in my life.
Oh, that's fantastic. I wish
I don't wish a lot. I feel like I've done all the things that I think are really important. I don't have a lot of things. I wish to stay in the moment and enjoy the moment, and to hang on to the relationships that I have and build on them.
I think
sometimes too much.
I love that one. I need
good health.
Okay. I hope
some financial security.
Okay. I hope
that people will understand that my message is one of hope. That hope is what sustains it so many times. So I hope other people will borrow some of mine if they don't have any of their own.
Oh. Lastly, I want.
I don't want for much. I spent a lot of the last few years getting rid of a lot of stuff that I thought I wanted at one time. So I want a simple life where I'm not bothered with having to take care of a lot of the stuff that we accumulate. And I just want to be able to enjoy the moment and not have to be driven to take care of a lot of things.
That's beautiful, actually. Loren, as always, I love talking with you. I loved talking with you about No More Neckties. If you haven't, the book's out tomorrow or today?
The 17th, May 17th is out. It's you can pre-order it now.
So go to nomoreneckties.com.
No More Neckties book.
No More Neckties book.
Or just Google, just Google No More Neckties, it'll come up.
Get the book. It's a great read. It's a memoir, Dr. Loren Olson. I've read it. I mean, it's got pictures. It's got his youth. He still looks the same. He hasn't aged one bit. He looks fantastic. Are you still riding your bike?
I am, yeah. I ride it too fast sometimes, and maybe one of my wishes should have been that I ride it more sensibly. But there's sometimes a hill you just can't resist flying down a little faster than you should.
Absolutely. Well, I love talking with you. Success with the book. I'm going to post this up, and I will post it everywhere I can possibly post it. I'm super excited for you. Congratulations on yet another book. If you haven't gotten this one, please go read his other one, Finally Out. That's still in bookstores and up and about too.
Yes, yeah.
Grab both of them. I think Loren's an outstanding author. I love his writing. So I hope to see you again, Loren.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another 3 years, maybe I'll have another one out.
There you go. There you go. But I love No More Neckties. It's really more of a lifestyle. I think we all should be doing no more neckties, Loren.
Thank you.
It's a great way to live.
I appreciate it a lot.
It's a great way to live. Really unpretentious, just no expectations, be yourself. I really think, to me, that's the thrust of what your story is. It's just like, do you.
Be the person you're meant to be.
Yeah, just do you, and the sooner you do it, the better life you have, really.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So thank you for meeting. I really thank you so much. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it and I wasn't disappointed.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll be in touch again. Take care.
Okay.
Lauren. All right.
Thanks, Colleen.
Take
All
care.
right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.